Hi, welcome everyone. This building on Gerald Road, Ikoyi, Lagos, Nigeria collapsed. It is one of many collapsed buildings recently. It was a 21-story luxury apartment building under construction in this upscale Gerald Road neighborhood in Ikoyi, Lagos. As you can see, rescue operation is ongoing and they have pulled many out alive. So why did this Ikoyi 360 building collapse? Why do buildings collapse generally, especially buildings that are under construction? One would expect that a building under construction shouldn't collapse because apart from the huge financial investments involved in the construction, lives are also at risk. We'll be looking at what caused the collapse of many buildings in the past, including this one. So what happened here in Ikoyi? As you can see, the slabs crashed down like a pack of cards. It didn't sway to the side. Everything just went down. Although investigation is currently underway to find out why the Ikoyi 360 building collapsed, let's look at the possible causes. It doesn't look like the foundation was a problem. What it looks like is the Ikoyi 360 building had a structural failure. The support columns just gave way. The slabs were just too heavy for the support columns, and considering the fact that the Ikoyi 360 building was 21 stories high, the reinforcements wasn't enough to support the building. Anyway, if you are an engineer, structural or civil, you can tell us in the comments what do you think is the cause of the Ikoyi 360 building collapse. A lot of professionals in the construction industry who have experience in this kind of building collapse can actually make educated guesses about what happened, just like we're making here based on what is visible and causes of other building collapses around the world. So just tell us what you think in the comments. Thanks, and RIP to all the people who lost their lives in this building collapse. May their loved ones find comfort. Also, if you were around this area when the building collapsed, tell us what it felt like and what you saw. Thanks. Oh, that's scary. Number 2 here is another shocking collapsed building in Sao Paulo, Brazil. According to investigators, the fire was caused by a suspected gas leakage. Also, the building was old and partly abandoned, but it had hundreds of squatters living inside. Many families were living inside this 24-story building. Fire outbreaks on high-rise buildings can be devastating as seen in this case. The fire even engulfed a second building. It hampers the rescue of people trapped within the building. It also makes it difficult for them to escape by themselves. The authorities shouldn't have allowed squatters to live in the building because they knew beforehand that this building didn't have the minimum conditions for habitation. That's according to the governor of Sao Paulo. Number 3 happened in Shanghai, China. The 13-story building didn't have a structural problem. As you can see, the replicas of the building was built multiple times and the others are still standing. So what happened here? Why did this particular one collapse? Well, at the time the construction works was rounding up on the site, they decided to start excavation works for the underground car park. And as always, human error played a major role here. They excavated very close to the river and the riverbanks failed, which led to the flooding of the excavated area and ultimately the foundation of the 13-story building. So the building started swaying and eventually came down. That was seriously unprofessional. Imagine after finishing construction, you start digging around the foundation of the building. Number 4 building collapsed in Chennai, India. It was an apartment building under construction, and by the side is what looks like a replica of the collapsed building. So what went wrong with the collapsed building? Was it a problem of substandard materials or wrong concrete mixtures? According to eyewitnesses, it rained heavily that day And after the rains, a lightning hit one of the protruding ions on the top deck, and shockingly, the electric charge went down the entire concrete column, weakening the support base. But would that alone bring down the 11-story building? Well, it doesn't look like it could. The foundation might have played a role, but if a critical support column is weakened, it might lead to a collapse. Number 5 is Champlain Tower in Miami, Florida, United States. A lot of structural defects were detected in the building and concrete repair works hadn't started. Although roof repairs were underway before the 12-story building partially collapsed. Initially, people thought that a sinkhole opened up and caused the collapse, but that has been debunked. Another major flaw that was discovered in 2018 was the long-term degradation of reinforced concrete structural support. Engineers found out that water had penetrated and corroded the reinforcing steel on the ground floor car park. Water penetrating concrete slabs or columns will always lead to corrosion of the rebars inside, which will ultimately lead to weakening of the entire structure. Number 6 in Alexandria, Egypt looks like a leaning tower, except that the foundation has collapsed and the building swayed, but couldn't hit the ground because it is in a densely populated neighborhood. Buildings like this 13-story building are everywhere around the neighborhood. The reason for the collapse is the fact that defects were identified 2 years after construction of the building in 2004. A removal order was issued, but the building was never demolished. Sometimes in Egypt, when buildings are marked unsafe and removal orders issued for them, residents still continue to live in them. Building collapses have become frequent in Egypt in recent years. Stricter monitoring of building sites should be encouraged to reduce building collapses. Number 7 is an 8-story building that collapsed in Istanbul, Turkey. As you can see, the location is a densely populated neighborhood. It doesn't seem like it swayed during collapse, which indicates that it must have been a structural problem. Looking at the collapsed building, it seems that a few support columns in the front gave way first, which resulted in the collapse of the building, as the remaining columns couldn't support the weight of the building. In fact, the building lost balance. Also, according to the authorities, the building had a license to build 5 stories. But how did they end up building 8 stories? The building was also supposed to be only residential use, but there was a garment factory operating on the ground floor. Fortunately, the factory workers had left before the collapse. Number 8 happened in Nairobi, Kenya. Looking at how the slabs came down, it is obvious that it is a structural failure. The foundation was weak. Foundations cost a lot of money depending on the type of soil, and the higher a building is, the deeper and more reinforced the foundation needs to be. Just like heavy rains and floods contributed to the collapse of the building in Chennai, India, it also rained heavily in Nairobi on the day this building collapsed. Building collapses in Kenya have become frequent in recent years. According to a recent audit report of all buildings in Nairobi, it was found that only 42% of buildings are fit for habitation. So the authorities should step up their game and increase supervision of construction sites to reduce these avoidable building collapses. Number 9 building collapse was caused by a devastating 6.4 magnitude earthquake that hit Taiwan in 2016. Which one is more scary between an earthquake and a building collapse? Imagine a situation where an earthquake causes a building to collapse. That building might collapse into a sinkhole created by the earthquake. This is scary stuff. Anyway, engineers and developers in earthquake-prone cities and countries have an enormous task of constructing shock-resistant buildings that can withstand all sorts of tremors. Taiwan sits on the so-called ring of fire, just like Japan, where the tectonic plates shift all the time, and sometimes it has a devastating effect on unprotected buildings. By the way, viewers, can you live in an earthquake-prone city, even if it's for a high-paying job? Tell us in the comments. Number 10 happened in Sihanoukville in Cambodia. The 7-story building was under construction when it collapsed. The unfinished building also doubled as living quarters for some of the workers who were fast asleep early in the morning that day. So what happened? Why did it collapse? Well, looking at the collapsed building, it looks like it had a structural problem. According to some people rescued from the building, they heard a loud bang, followed by vibrations and an almost instant collapse. Following their account, that loud bang might have been the first floor decking hitting the ground. Preceding that, of course, would have been some support columns snapping. Enforcement and monitoring of construction sites to ensure building codes are strictly observed should improve around the world so that building collapses will be reduced to the barest minimum. Till next time, thanks for watching.